姉ちゃん、もう自分でできるから。
ダメ。私が風邪ひいた時は空が面倒見てくれたでしょ。でも綺麗にしないとね。
Source: Aki Sora. The story begins with a short flashback as Sora Aoi's older sister Aki washes his back. He notices rather sheepishly that her melons have gotten bigger, and she asks if he wants to touch them. MC says it's okay, because he's not a baby anymore. But his sis says even if he grows up and becomes an adult, he can still touch and suck them. Enchanted, MC proceeds to do so, causing her to make cute noises. MC then asks how she feels about him, and she replies she loves him a lot. It was all just a game to him back then, but as he grew up, he wouldn't be able to say those things anymore. In the present day, MC is cleaning up Aki's room as she lays on her bed watching new DVDs, dressed in only her underwear. She says she had just remembered there were 3 movies she hadn't watched yet, and that if she watched them, she'd have to pay late fees, but she didn't want to just give up and return them yet. After all, it'd be a waste to have borrowed these movies, only to not watch them. She asks what MC would do, and he brushes it off, saying it doesn't matter. Aki complains that regardless of what she does, she loses. MC then catches sight of his sister's underwear in the mirror and instantly becomes quite bashful. Yes, it's an anime about love between a brother and his sister. And no, they are not step-siblings, so watch at your own discretion. Just then, MC's twin sister Nami enters, remarking rather disappointedly that he's in Aki's room again. She tells him to make breakfast, but since he's cleaning their eldest sister's room, he tells her to do it herself. She flatly rejects, so Aki then offers to do so. But Nami turns her down, implying she can't cook, which makes her older sister pout. Nami says Aki hasn't properly made anything in her life, and Aki tries to defend herself by saying she has, only to admit that she's made cup noodles before. Well, to be fair, I've also messed up cup noodles, so it's not that easy. Anyways, MC eventually relents. He says he'll clean up Aki's room quickly so he can make breakfast. Pleased, Nami leaves. And speaking of pleasing, Aki then thanks MC and kisses him, saying she loves him, which makes MC blush and touch his cheeks. He's then alone in her room, holding a pair of his sister's undergarments, deep in thought. Later at school, one of MC's classmates named Kana asks if MC is on duty, but he replies that he's just covering for Nami, his twin sister. His classmate laughs and remarks, Nami isn't reliable like MC and Aki. She seems to look up to Aki, who has a reputation as a great student and athlete. As she talks, it's obvious that Kana likes MC, but she admits she doesn't have a chance against Aki. Fortunately for her, they're siblings, so Kana doesn't think Aki is a rival. Unfortunately for her, this is an H anime. Just then, Nami appears from behind and punches MC on the head, saying he's dumb and annoying. The 2 girls leave, with MC watching as the girls finish playing tennis. Aki comes over to him, saying she forgot her wallet, and MC ends up paying for a drink. He tells her that she needs to get her act together since everyone looks up to her. Aki says she never asked for that kind of attention, and MC calls her a slob again. As he's watching her drink, MC blushes, which makes his sister offer to play with him for a bit. MC ends up cross-dressing in a girl's tennis outfit, and he says it feels breezy down there. Aki doesn't notice, instead telling him to practice swinging the racket. She guides him from behind, her presence making his cheeks turn red. As summer approaches, he finds himself enthralled by the smell of her sweat. Later that night, after practice, as the 2 are cleaning up and undressing in the laundry room, they talk about the day's events. However, the plot demands something happen, so Aki removes all her clothes, which makes MC nervous. He says that she wanted to shower, she should have told him, since it would surprise anyone who walked in. What would people say if they saw brother and sister in the bathroom together? But she brushes that aside and straight up asks if he wants to bathe with her. He pretends to not like that thought, so she reminds him that they used to do this all the time when they were younger. MC replies, this was only when they were children, and Aki asks him if he doesn't want to do it anymore. He says that's not the problem and eventually relents, so they end up in the bath together. While they're washing, they talk about how it's been a long time since they last did this together. Then Aki startles MC by musing that it's gotten bigger, making him quite flustered. But she tells him that she's talking about his back and that he's becoming a man. MC agrees. Then his sister approaches behind him, saying she would wash his back. It used to take much less time, but he's grown big before she noticed. Out of the blue, Aki asks if MC's button got turned on from playing tennis with her. Before he can reply, she reaches down and grabs his radish. Both freeze up and blush before Aki smirks, teasing him. Why is it getting big down there? MC weakly protests, and his sister further teases him, asking if his button turned on from watching the girls play tennis or if it was because he was dressed in a girl's tennis outfit. He says no to both of these. Last, she asks if it was because of her. MC's hesitation makes his sister call him a bad boy for getting excited by his own sister. Eki then grabs MC's radish and begins to play with it, telling him that she'll make him feel better. She urges him to loosen up and leave everything to her, and soon enough, they're making lewd sounds. Aki calls him a good boy, saying that he doesn't have to hold back and that he doesn't have to think about anything. He should just enjoy it. MC calls out his sister's name repeatedly before the action comes to an end, leaving bits of milky soap on the floor. He rushes out, deeply embarrassed. MC is in shock, and now is a good time to address the elephant in the room, or rather the elephant that just left the room. Guess my jokes aren't that funny. For those of you who are unaware, brother-sister Alabama is actually legal in several countries, including Japan. It was outlawed at some point before the abolishment was repealed. Due to the genetic problems from siblings' love creation, it's generally frowned upon and socially unacceptable, which has led to it becoming a bit of a kink, hence this anime. Back to the story. Later that night, Nami comes home to see Aki alone in the living room with the lights out. She asks about dinner and is told that there's apparently no food since MC went to sleep early. In his room, MC thinks about how, as a kid, he once got stuck in a deserted house. He feared he was going to starve to death, only for his sister Eki to appear. He began to believe she would always be there to save him. The next day at school, MC is still in shock. His sister Nami and his classmate Kana watch him, a bit concerned, and Nami informs him she's eating at Kana's house today. After school, MC is passing by the tennis court when Aki confronts him. He remembers their incident the previous night and runs off, with his sister chasing after him. But he rounds a corner and disappears. Aki searches for him, but she has no idea where he went. A while later, it begins to rain. Kana, meanwhile, at her house with Nami, asks if Sora is alright since she noticed he looked down. It's apparent she cares for him. It's revealed Nami is quite a big fan of Yuri on Ice, without the ice, and promptly declares that she's going to play with Kana that day. She says Kana's melons are bigger than she thought, and begins to have some fun with them. Kana says Nami resembles Sora, which seems to unsettle her a bit. Back in the storeroom where MC is hiding, he's fallen asleep and ended up being locked in the room. He begins to apologize once again. MC feels horrible about the way he's been acting, until the doors swing open and Aki appears, having finally found him. MC's surprised and his sister asks if he's alright. He notes she's gotten cold and soaking wet while searching for him. He feels even worse about this and apologizes to her, admitting to having dirty fantasies about his sister, which is what caused everything. However, his sister is glad and confides to him she thought he'd leave her when he got older. She doesn't want him to leave her and wants him to herself. They kiss again, but MC once again rejects her, saying they're siblings. Aki is greatly demoralized and walks back into the rain dejected. But after his other third leg does some thinking, he sprints after her, hugging her and telling her not to go. They once again kiss before returning home. There they get onto the bed for some fun time, without tennis rackets. Though if that's your thing, go for it. French kissing isn't enough for the pair. She soon pushes him down, revealing she feels the same about him. She's had lewd fantasies about Sora, and she now removes her clothes. She doesn't believe those things are wrong, and she declares she wants all of him, before slowly crawling on top of him, licking him all over. His feet, his fingers, she said she wants it all. Aki tells him to lie still before inserting his radish into her valley. The two have their first time together. Aki admits she's always wanted to do this, and MC wonders that it feels really strange. They continue all night long, with Aki admitting she's always wanted to do this. She wants to take it all in and tells him to not hold back. MC then takes his turn on top, hammering away the stones in the mine, and Aki says he's making her feel really good. The two then embrace, with his sister telling to release it inside, calling out his name as he unleashes a flood inside of her valley, before falling over exhausted on top of her. Then he rolls off and the two kiss again. MC doesn't know if it's good or bad, but he just wants his sister to embrace him. In the morning, Nami returns home, angrily bursting into Nomi's room, saying she left her wet clothes in the living room, only to discover MC and Aki there together. If this was comedy, there'd surely be a baka moment, but MC and Aki must have the speed force since they cleaned out their act and he pretends to be cleaning her room again. Like before, MC offers to make breakfast, and when Nami leaves, Aki hugs him, kissing him on the cheek, saying she loves him very much. Although MC heard those words a ton before, they sounded a bit different now. A few days later, MC is standing on the balcony, holding his sister's underwear. He admits he has a secret. He's having an affair with his own sister. But before he can move to Alabama, he hears something inside and returns home to see Aki making something terrible on the stove. The pot is an utter wreck of disgusting colors and putrid smells. Not even incompetent university kids would consider it food. Nami pops in, concerned, and MC says they'll probably be buying food tonight. A small scuffle ensues, and the children get covered in mayonnaise. Just then, their mother enters, asking what the kids are doing. MC thinks although they look like a normal family, in reality, he's got a secret with Aki. A relationship he can't stop and that can't ever be discovered. After they get cleaned up, Nami tries to get MC to join a fashion club and has him cross-dress as a cat girl. She's about to tell him something, but he hears the food being messed up in the kitchen and sprints out to check on it. There, Aki appears, leaning against the doorframe. She calls him cute and apologizes for making him cook, saying it's her fault for failing earlier. She then begins to nibble on his ear, which he says tickles. She suddenly reaches down and grabs his carrot, playing with it. They then come to a satisfying and noisy conclusion. Elsewhere, Nami does the same in her room, holding a picture of her, Kana, and MC. The next day, there's a fashion research club meeting with just Kana, MC, and Nami as its sole members. Kana is eager to have MC join, but he grows uncomfortable and excuses himself, saying he has another class. As he's thinking, standing on a stairwell, Aki shows up to join him, teasing him. She asks if he was thinking about anything dirty. He tells her to stop it, and she replies, she's serious. She always thinks about him. Aki says their mother is out that day and says she wants to be alone with MC. He again questions if it's all right and she kisses him, saying that she'll see him later before running off. Nami then appears, saying she saw Aki kiss MC on the lips. She says even though it's just Aki being Aki, MC needs to cool down his sister complex. Family can't stay together forever. After school, as Nami sits with Kana in their club room, she complains that MC isn't going to be showing up. Kana says it's alright, since they can't just make a guy join them and expect him not to resist. Trying to cheer her up, Nami shows her a picture of MC dressed in the cat outfit, and Kana exclaims that it's really cute and she's going to keep it in a box with all her other treasured possessions. Nami asks why she likes MC and is simply told it's because he's cute. Meanwhile, MC is waiting for Aki in the storage room. She's late since practice took longer than she thought, and when she sees his carrot, she remarks, "It's big," before happily sitting down next to him, and the two once again kiss. They explore each other's parts, and both say they like each other's smell. Their clothes are soon forgotten, and MC is taking a nice look at Aki's hind. She's wet after thinking about him during practice, and stuff starts dripping onto the ground. They then have a passionate fun time together, crying out each other's names, and somehow nobody notices. Afterward, they lay together, holding hands. They say they want to be together forever. However, MC remembers what Nami said to him about family not always being able to stay together. At home, MC confronts his sister about what she meant. She states one day they will all move apart and begin their own lives with their own families. Nami then asks if he's thought about having a girlfriend. He asks why, and she calls him an idiot, before asking about his feelings for Kana, saying she has large melons. When MC only repeats the words melons, she kicks on the door and asks, what kind of response was that? When he doesn't really reply, Nami says they would be a good match. Later, Aki is sucking on MC's lollipop while they're in the kitchen, and she says she feels so hot, like it's about to melt. The two must be exceedingly brave or into exhibitions because they're doing it while their sister Nami is asleep only a few feet away. Suddenly, Nami wakes up, asking what time it is. This makes MC start to feel anxious about what would happen if they got caught. Aki doesn't reply, instead just sneezing. She's sick. The next day at school, MC tells Nami he's going to get some food for Aki since the doctor said she needs to rest. He wants to help her, and MC says the teachers are allowing him to leave school early. He apologizes for not being able to speak with Kana. Nami tries to get him to stop, but he's gone. In the club meeting room, Nami is wearing the clothes Kana made for MC and gets called cute. She's excited until Kana compares her to MC, which makes her pout and grab Kana's melons, saying they've gotten even bigger. Nami tells her to pretend she's MC and then lets down her hair, adopting MC's voice. She says it's a rehearsal for MC before kissing Kana deeply. Kana gets caught up in her fantasy. She wants to do it again, which makes Nami excited. They do it again. Nami knows all Kana sees is MC, but she's fine with it. Then there's a bit of an incident. Nami goes a bit far, opening Kana's shirt and unsettling her. There's a really uncomfortable silence. At home, MC has made Aki some food, and she tells him to stay with her. MC asks if it's alright to stay with her, and tells her about what Nami told her. He says they can't keep doing things like that since they're siblings. Aki reassures him, saying she'll never leave his side, and tells him to believe in her. As he touches her face, she asks for him to warm her up with his body. Meanwhile, Kana and Nami are heading home. Kana asks what will happen if MC and Aki are actually lovers, as she doubts she can compare to Aki. She's right, since at the moment, Aki and MC are playing in bed. Kana, however, next said she's lucky they can never be lovers since they're siblings, which unfortunately for her, this is an anime about just that. A few minutes later, Kana and Nami arrive home. Nami tells Kana to wait in MC's room, since she knows he's likely in Aki's at the moment. Hearing their arrival, MC has slipped out through the window and is about to return to his room when he stumbles upon Kana standing there. She immediately passes out, with MC soon doing the same. Nami enters the room and finds Kana, giving her a kiss. It's revealed MC unfortunately caught Aki's cold, and now she's the one caring for him. He tells her to stay with him forever, and she says she will before kissing him. There's now a flashback to when Kana and Nami were younger. A guy asked Kana out, but she was way too nervous to say anything. Passing by, Nami got angry and marched up, grabbing the guy and telling him he was making Kana uncomfortable, which quickly sends him packing. At first, a bit scared, Kana thanked Nami for helping her out. This was how the two first met. It's shown that Nami has a really big thing for her friend and is really jealous Kana likes MC. At school in the present day, Kana tells Nami that before she passed out, she saw something incredible. After all, unknown to anyone else, she saw MC without his clothes. Nami tells Kana that MC is a complete idiot and that Kana needs to be the one taking charge. She says she's got a great idea. Meanwhile, back at the Ewe household, Aki is once again playing with MC in bed. She licks him while playing with his carrot, telling him to let it out along with the fever. As she's about to do something incredibly naughty, Nami bursts in. Moving faster than the Flash, the two quickly pretend as if Aki is feeding MC some food. Nami says MC will never get a girlfriend if Aki keeps treating him like that. This makes MC blush, and Aki slyly asks, "What is wrong with that?" Nami says that there's obviously something very wrong with that, but doesn't clarify. If only she was paying attention in biology class. As she leaves, Nami demands he come with her somewhere the next day. The plan commences. The next day, MC meets with Kana, believing they're here to buy outfits and do stuff for the fashion club. MC asks her what they should do, as Nami won't be there, and Kana said she's fine with just MC. He says since they're there, they might as well have some fun. They first head to watch a movie, all the while tailed by Nami. Then they go to get some ice cream before going to a game store. Nami finds it wrong that MC even knows how to pull off a date, and it's obvious she's becoming more and more envious of what they're doing. She wants to be with Kana. As if on cue, MC remarks it's almost like they're on a date, which makes Kana really embarrassed. As they're sitting in a restaurant, she finally confesses Nami was trying to set something up for her and MC. That's why it's just the two of them. As Kana is about to apologize and leave, MC tells her about a fashion store he knows about, which makes Kana really happy, much to Nami's horror. She slinks off to the school just as it starts to rain. There, she remembers her past experiences with Kana and their history together. She called her cool for defending her back then with the guy. As Nami stands in the club room, depressed, the worst-case scenario happens. MC and Kana walk in. It's raining and their clothes are wet, so MC takes off his clothes and wraps himself in a blanket. Kana goes to change, telling MC to keep his eyes shut. MC obliges, and then it all goes south. Remember how Nami is obsessively in love with Kana? And how Kana is normally really reserved and scared? Well, Nami is stuck in a locker watching as Kana finally, and at the worst possible time, decides to take the helm and make an advance on MC. As he turns around, Kana is standing behind him without her clothes, and she kisses him. He pushes her away, and she apologizes for not being able to control herself. He asks if Nami was the one who planned this, but she confesses it's how she actually felt. Kana notices MC's carrot growing longer, and she's happy that he considers her a woman. His sister had told her MC liked girls with large melons. She's glad that it's true. As MC slowly backs away, he ends up falling into a chair, with Kana bending down and massaging his carrot with her melons. She's glad her melons are pleasing to him, and despite MC's protests, he ends up coming to the realization that Kana really loves him, leaving her covered in milk. And all the while, poor Nami is in the locker, trying to cover her ears to not see this happening. She's lost in her own fantasies about playing with Kana. In it, they're the only main characters of Yuri on Ice, except without the ice. In her fantasies, the two of them are passionately making out on her bed, both hopelessly entranced by the other. However, the reality is so much different. Instead, she's laying alone in her room in the complete dark. Out in the living room, Aki kisses MC before they have some passionate moments on the sofa. She asks if he feels good and urges him to keep going before they come to the realization that they love each other. They cry out each other's names at the climax. In her own room, Nami is doing the same, thinking about Kana. After leaving the locker, she cried over the milk on the ground, deeply depressed, wondering if her love didn't see her in the same light just because she didn't have a carrot of her own. This horrifying realization brings the world crashing down around her. The next day, as they're hanging out at school, Nami asks Kana about her date with MC. Pretending she wasn't there, she feigns ignorance about what they did the previous day, and Kana thanks her for making it all possible. She explains she's always lacked the courage, and Nami gave her the will she needed to finally be true to herself. This makes her realize that her lies and her words of encouragement were the reason all of this happened, sending her down the spiral of madness. She assumes that this must be her punishment. Nami then confesses her feelings to her friend, saying she loves Kana, but her friend misunderstands. Kana thinks it's a declaration of companionship, and she instead delivers the ultimate crushing friend zone. As they stand there, the distance between them seems to grow. Nami returns home in a frenzy, shutting herself into her room before going into a rage, stabbing the picture of MC with a pair of scissors. MC bursts into the room and sees a scene of carnage. His sister's stuff has been scattered all over the floor, broken and in complete disarray. Before he can figure out what's going on, Nami rises ominously from behind the bed, asking him if Kana's melons felt good. MC asks her what happened, and his sister rushes over, slapping him, holding a pair of scissors in his hand. She proceeds to pin him to the ground, cut a hole in his pants, and play with him against his will. She wants his carrot, angry he's taken everything away from her, and she sits on him. She then tells him that it's fine, and she begins to bounce up and down, going from crazy to incredibly horned in a matter of seconds. They then start doing it on the bed, feeling absolutely great, despite the debris-strewn room and the fact she just tried to abuse him. Viewers, please do not do this at home. Nami begins to feel like she's flying, and the two come to a satisfying understanding. Afterward, as she gets dressed, MC asks if Nami likes Kana. She makes a face and calls him an idiot before leaving her room and standing alone in the hallway. The next day, as the family eats breakfast, there's an uncomfortable silence. Afterward, as MC stands alone outside, ready for school, Aki grabs him by the hand and they run off, followed by Nami. She's still conflicted, but seems to come to terms with her situation. And that's it. Before we go, I do want to point out, despite its questionable content, the music in this anime is surprisingly well done. Although it's not for everyone, it's quite bold and does what it wants to do very well. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more content.